Hey, I'm at Brigham Young University. We're going to go take a look at their horticulture department and walk through their greenhouses with the assistant dean over that program.
These spaces, students run all these spaces,
Yep.
right? So plants have been accumulated on sabbaticals. Some of them, you'll notice, are stuff that you can find at Home Depot, and then some are more rare.
So what you're saying is the photosynthesis active region is 400 to 700 nanometers, but your lighting actually goes below and above that, not for the photosynthesis purpose, but for the purpose of triggering flowering or particular types of growth. It doesn't actually have any photosynthesis
That's
involved.
exactly right, yeah. We also do some work using light recipes and flavor profiles for strawberries. So strawberries have 128 flavonoids in them. Those flavonoids make up that flavor profile, and so as we change the output of some of those flavonoids, you get a different tasting strawberry. So
That's amazing.
yeah, and you can change that flavor profile a lot just with light. Like everything else stays the same. We add more yellow light in, we get a flavor that's more nutty or earthy. We take the yellow out and add a lot of green and red in, you get a flavor that's almost tastes like a fake strawberry flavoring. It's really sweet. It's not economical if they have sunlight, right? If it's just supplemental lighting, then it doesn't work very well. But if you have them growing in an indoor farm where it's all artificial lighting, then it's a lot easier to control that and have a huge impact on flavor that way. Our Mediterranean Bay, a lot more of these plants are going to look like the house plants.
So what are some things you would like to see done differently in your construction?
When they designed, they have pad fans on the inside, vent fans on the outside, and no dampers on the inside, right? And part of it was a price thing. They were trying to do something that was more inexpensive. I hate this design because it allows insects to move from bay to bay. And in a teaching greenhouse, that's terrible, where we have each bay needs to be its own space. We pretty much have the free flow or free movement of insects through the pads, right?
Even though they're screened so well?
I mean, the screen on the other side, if you look at the other side, we just redid the screens and they're better, but they're not perfect. I mean, they pretty quickly start to fall apart. So these ones are all new. If you look at the other side, you'll see how much they have deteriorated. But even here, right, you get holes and stuff in them that come up. And if you it should be about 85 degrees.
So there's a mist system in those PVC pipes that come on when the humidity drops a certain level, keeps it very high in its humidity in this particular greenhouse location, this bay.
Right. Some of these orchids, stuff that you can get from the grocery store, floral section, some are rare. They've been brought back from Madagascar or areas of Indonesia. One of them that looks like when it flowers, it looks like a crab because it grows on the beach and it's pollinated by crabs. So we use heating mats. This is mainly space for students to use for their own projects. We use a lot of energy, and part of it is because it's really inefficient to run 10 bays in a wing, right? And they all have different set points. But the other part of it is because they're trying to hold environments really steady for research purposes, right? You're looking for a specific set point. We use beneficial insects in this teaching wing instead of applying any pesticides. Mealybug destroyers a lot. And then we'll use parasitic wasps.
Okay.
We just replaced the pond and we're in the process of redoing the fountain and stuff to incorporate some larger water lilies. It has plants rooted in the soil instead of in pots, right?
Yeah.
Some of them are in pots. A lot of these big trees are rooted in the soil. And it allows us to show students what they look like as they mature. And what we use it for from a research standpoint is mainly ecological stuff. We're tracking those populations of the pests and the beneficials. We look at decomposition of leaf material, leaf litter. So that kind of long-term stuff. And these plants here are part of Dr. Stewart's plant propagation.
How many years ago did you say this was built?
I think 2012.
2012, yeah.
May have been a year, maybe 2011, but right around that time in the greenhouses. And so when we did that last time, when we demolished those greenhouses, built these as a replacement.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, you can smell the smell in here. They've got some, one of the research projects is testing home composters. A couple of faculty who have bays there, and they do genetics work. So this is one of them. This is Dr. Jellen's bay. He does work primarily with quinoa. And so they breed quinoa. They're looking for varieties that do well in Morocco and in parts of Africa. And so that's what they've done. This group also sequenced the quinoa genotype. This bay here is a faculty that does work with pests and parasites. And so a lot of they have these cages set up so they can net stuff when they add insects to it. A lot of his work is on pine nuts now. He used to do stuff with agave, he's kind of shifted to pine nuts. And so they've got these pinyon pine trees out here, in Gore cooperative fields, and they're trying to encourage that industry in Utah where it's not needing a lot of water.
Yeah.
And it's something that grows natively.
Sure. Pine nuts, yeah, it's a dang good idea.
A good replacement for some of these nuts that are much more resource intense, right?
So pine nuts have a lot of potential. What's the by the time you plant to the point you can actually commercially harvest? How many years is that? Several years, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Slow
I would say
growing.
7 to 9.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, more or less typical. When you look at pears or cherries, that's about the same
Is it?
thing, 7 to 9 years. Apples is a little better, right? You got 3 to 5, more or less, but you have that establishment cost period for all of these crops. So this bay and then the one next door are our faculty that does, Brian Hopkins, he does the football field. So he is a turf grass expert. They do a lot of deficit irrigation stuff with these plants here. There's grass next, so they do work with reclamation. So after we mine areas, how do we rejuvenate that environment again afterwards? A lot of these plants that they do are native plants that they can use to do recovery on these kind of industrial mining. So Nate Story, S-T-O-R-E-Y.
So online has some videos about efficient agriculture.
And then Dr. Christensen does work with corn. Other things that were not designed super well, the way they design these troughs, where this thing is full of water in the growing season, it puts so much weight on this edge that as it starts to bend off the wall, you can see we've transitioned some of them to this new setup so it doesn't put the pressure. And as it's pulled down, what happens is it makes water splash off of the pad onto the screens, which just erodes the screens away.
So, did you replace the pineapple?